Welcome to our podcast offerings, where we invite you to take responsibility for your own well-being, reclaim your energetic sovereignty, embody authentic living, and come home to your true self. We are two sisters, two oceans apart. Maya Lotz from the Energy for Life Wellbeing practice, and Sandy Lotz-Weiner from the Inspired Life Coaching practice. Together we bring you the Ocean of Abundance podcast and lots of possibilities to engage with when you choose to align with the wisdom of nature. Welcome everyone. In this episode, we continue our conversation about the Reiki precepts. In our previous episodes in this series, we covered the preamble for today only, the first precept for today only, let go of anger, the second for today only, let go of worry, and in today's episode, we talk about the third precept for today only, be grateful. Before we dive into our discussion, as a reminder, here is our Ocean of Abundance version of the precepts. For today only, let go of anger, let go of worry, be grateful, be honest, be compassionate. Hi, Sandy. How are you today?
Good morning, Maya. I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Lovely to hear your voice as always. Yes, gratitude. Grateful for the technology that allows us to spend time together, even if it's virtually. At least we can stay in contact and do what we're doing together.
It's easy to forget the simpler things in life. During COVID, we were enamored by Zoom or technology that made us connect with people. And then as we get used to it, we might forget that it's still there and it's basically driving our lives forward in a good way.
So today we're going to dive in and talk about gratitude. And we touched on a few themes in our pre-recording discussion, like that gratitude brings us into presence, that it's an opportunity to reflect. It can motivate us to act and connect with others. It can help us to change our perspective. It can flip the script from woe is me to wow is me. And that gratitude can be the key to unlock lots of possibilities for you when you live it. And as we discussed what we were going to do in today's show before we started recording, I chuckled as both of us chose resources from the Grateful Living organization. We'll put their link in the show notes because that is definitely a good place to start if you're looking for how to live gratitude. Before we continue, I know you found a beautiful poem for us there. Would you like to share your offering, Sandy?
Yes, I would actually like to do that. As Maya said, we both did our research independently and came across the same resources, which is so interesting. And this one in particular just touched my heart. It was something I found on grateful.org with poetry from James Cruz. And the name of the poem is called Gratefulness. It goes like this. Gratitude passes through you like the clouds of mood, like rain turning to sleet, or gray skies breaking into blue. It is only gratefulness that stays, holding your trembling hand beneath the hospital sheet as you count each breath, or jumping up and down when you hear good news. It is the faithful companion we have always been seeking, this feeling of fullness that follows us everywhere we go. Less like a shadow trailing the body and more like a glimmer held in the heart that promises never to leave.
So beautiful. And what struck me was that it changes our perspective on gratitude. It's not all rainbow clouds and cupcake icing. I mean, look at what he touches on, that even in challenging moments, gratitude is there and is this faithful companion.
Absolutely. I love the fact that he did include that because I'm going to say that maybe for some of us, our relationship with gratitude will change over time. We might have learned it in a certain way, when we were young kids, say thank you and please, that type of thing. And then as life unfolds and we have different experiences, and some of them can be super challenging, thinking of maybe health scares and, losing people and job losses. Now you change your relationship with the concept of gratitude. You have to relearn a different way of embracing gratitude in the midst of what is going on.
And it's interesting because that ties in now with when we turned our focus to Reiki and looking at Reiki more in depth as a way of life and as a constant companion. For some reason, back then, I came across Healing Begins with Gratitude on the Grateful Living website, an article by Joanna Macy and Molly Brown. And there is this beautiful image by Dory Midnight of a dandelion from the root all the way to the bloom to the little tufts of seeds blowing away. I will put a link in the show notes. They say gratitude for the gift of life is the primary wellspring of all religions, the hallmark of the mystic, the source of all true art. Yet we so easily take this gift for granted. And they use in their article the concept of the spiral, which this beautiful illustration then exemplifies. And here's what they say about the spiral. The spiral begins with gratitude because that quiets the frantic mind and brings us back to source. It reconnects us with basic goodness and our personal power. It helps us to be more fully present to our world. That grounded presence provides the psychic space for acknowledging the pain we carry for our world.
That is beautiful. I can so relate to every word there. Because when we're sitting in the real darkness of life, the only way at that point is possibly to look for something to be grateful for. That would be the key to unlock the door to the light, right? We might not find something in the present moment that we can be grateful for, the circumstances we're in, or we can go into the recesses of our minds and be grateful for something that served us in the past. So I like also the fact that we refer to some kind of belief system, be it religion or some form of philosophy you're following, because all of those, whether it's Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, there's gratefulness is the centerpiece on all of those, through all of that. It's a theme. You're not going to find one system that is not going to touch on gratitude as a pivotal point or maybe a starting place for most people. For me, I see it as a key. It will open doors for you, windows, spaces.
And it's interesting because there was this phase where everybody was keeping a great gratitude journal. And often the way that that was wrapped up and presented as a practice didn't resonate with me. But I find this poem and then Joanna Macy and Molly Brown's words deepens that understanding that gratitude actually is present as a way of life because I had to work to get there. And I did in dark times begin with very basic things because I think that's a good place to start. Wherever you are now, I'm sure you can find 5 things to be grateful for. But I think back then, too much emphasis was placed on if you're grateful for this, then that will happen. Whereas here we're saying, no, it is a way of coming into a stillness. It's when you live it as a way, then it stills the mind. And it can even be present when there are challenging moments in your life, as per James Crews' poem. So I recently fell off my bicycle and injured my hand. And prior to that, I had concerns around certain relationships in our household and going forward and how we're going to do this. And I've been working with Reiki with that and knowing that the answers will come. It doesn't just come the first day you request some assistance, but I wasn't seeing it. And it was very soon after I felt one that I used Reiki in the moment to calm myself down, invited Reiki's presence. Reiki's already here. It actively invited Reiki to be with me, to help me get back to my car and to help me. And one of the first thoughts or the first downloads I got was, oh, wow, now I am completely dependent on my sons. They have to do for me what I've been doing for them. And what has unfolded has been this beautiful journey of reconnecting, particularly with my youngest son, because I literally couldn't feed myself. I managed to wash myself, but he had to take over a lot of my duties. And just spending the time together and having to mentor him to do some of the things that I earn an income from has just brought so many gifts. So I can say I'm grateful I fell off my bicycle and injured my soft tissue, because it opened a multitude of doors that I could not see or access before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we go search on the internet for people who found a new way of being in the world or discovered something that they developed or started a business, I'm thinking of people during COVID that lost jobs and then were forced to create some form of income. I forget the name of the people, but I heard about a husband and wife team that both lost their jobs and they were desperate. And out of that desperation, they started something that grew into a complete business and they are booming. So, yeah, we're not grateful we lost the job. We're not grateful that COVID arrived, but we're grateful for how that opportunity lend another opportunity, and also probably grateful for the fact that they were guided to not just go into the pity party, but to go, okay, done with that, now what? And they actually put something into action. And I think the product that they developed is now helping other people. You know, we might have a medical problem that we're trying to overcome, and we find a dietary solution for ourselves. And then that becomes our livelihood or the book we write. And we start helping many people. Yeah, it's not the circumstances that's happening to us that we're grateful for. It's the new awareness that comes through the challenge that we're grateful for.
Yeah, and again, I want to come back to Joanna Macy and Molly Brown, who say that gratitude quiets the frantic mind and brings us back to source. And I go back to, so when I started with the gratitude practice years ago, it was not with the insights that I have now. And it felt quite artificial, and it really was just listing things. And I know we often say practice makes practice, but this was the same. It's like initially it didn't really feel like it was my own. I was just doing it and finding my way. But over time, gratitude becomes the way, and it gives pause for thought. It makes us reflect on what we have in our life. And it really, really resonates with me how it quietens us, it stills us. You're not doing it for an external outcome. It has this wonderful internal light that it shines.
Oh, juicy stuff there that came up for me. You know how we always say to people, count your blessings. When people go into the worry world or the what ifs, count your blessings. It reminds me so much of just after my husband died, and you go through the whole book of how am I going to do this and what ifs. And you're right. Gratitude was that pause for my brain to not go down that rabbit hole, because I could go back and go, you have a professional qualification, you can work, you can earn, you have a house that you can live in. I don't have to sell it. I don't have to move. You can go back for things in the past that's still available to you, that is going to be the foundation of the life raft that you're going to craft for yourself to get through the choppy waters you're in right now. For some people, it might be, I have a belief system. I have extended family. I know a lot of people. I just finished my master's degree. Gratitude for me almost feels like it does for the mind what breath work does for my body and my mind. It's the equivalent of mental breathing, not lungs breathing, but my mind gets a breath.
Yeah, it's like you can pause that overthinking, but it is something that you cultivate over time. I was trying to explain it to somebody the other day, and immediately the resistance went up, and it's like, oh, I don't work that way. But I know that this person thought about the reward system, like if I'm more grateful, then that. And that's not how I mean this at all. Indeed, the phrasing here for me is so apt because it makes you ponder, it makes you become still, which, as you say, then quietens the mind and you begin to reflect. Yeah.
For me, gratitude, thinking about cause and effect, I understand that feeling or that sentiment. For me, gratitude quiets the pond, which is my mind. And then if the pond is quiet, I can reflect and pause and come to a sound decision, probably. But if I want to turn gratitude into a cause and effect, then I have to put the pebble of gratitude into the pond of life so that somebody else can benefit from that ripple. Then you've created that cause and effect, ripple effect that's beneficial for all, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So I can overthink, and who I am can feel overwhelmed, and I need to tend to self first. And then gratefulness is a way for me to, as you say, still the choppy waters. Because when I'm overthinking or overwhelmed, I feel like I've lost connection to source. I feel like I've lost connection to Reiki. I haven't. Universal life force, universal intelligence, wisdom is here already, always. But it's my franticness in my mind and the hyperactivity that makes me feel I've lost connection. And the gratitude is like the way that it helps me settle again. And it's interesting then for me to live Reiki as a way, live gratitude and Reiki, to pursue it as a way of living. You need to give the gratitude away. It's not a gift you hold on to. That's what you're saying. It's like it comes to self. It's very much with Reiki too. It begins with self Reiki. You work with self and then you give it away. You pass it on, you pay it forward. It's the same with gratefulness for me here, or gratitude. It helps you and you feel better, and that motivates you to pass it on to another. I like that more than cause and effect.
But remember, we start where we are with, how we perceive things and how we see life, or what our belief systems are. So we might have different language, but over time, that same cause and effect person can flip the script on themselves and maybe come to a new understanding of, yeah, cause and effect, but not just for my my action will ripple.
Yes,
So be
yes.
mindful and aware of what ripple I've sent into the world.
And if the gratitude stills my pond, then maybe even the person that I perceived ruffled my feathers or upset my day or the incident, I then am able to view it differently and feel grateful for it and see aspects in and qualities in the person, in the situation, that actually, wow, makes me more grateful for the situation, the person.
Right? And I think one question might be why, but the other one could be in any given situation, what am I grateful for? Like whenever something happens or whenever a situation arises, is instead of going why, it's like what am I grateful for here?
It makes me think of that trauma exercise. People are who have big T, little t, panicky moments, anxiety. one of the tools is to use your senses. What can I see? What can I hear? What can I smell? And I feel like, as you said, gratitude using the senses then kind of brings you back into your body, where the gratitude kind of brings you back into right mind.
Right. So that's what I meant earlier with gratitude is the breath of the mind, not the lungs, that gives you the pause to ground yourself back in your body or back in your life for that matter. I also want to touch on something you said earlier because I think we still sometimes want to ask other people's permission to take care of ourselves or try and explain why we have to take care of ourselves because of something that we feel we struggle with maybe. And the one thing when you were saying like I do this because I can get overwhelmed, what came up for me was I hope everybody takes care of themselves first because by golly, I want my pilot to be grounded and not overwhelmed before they hit the. It's essential to flip that around so that we know that it starts with me. Everything starts with me. And I don't read that in a narcissistic way, but with me taking care of me before I leave my home, before I engage in the social media, before I send the email, before I do anything because of the ripple effect, right? And so if it means I start my days with my gratitude journal, that's what it means. That's step one.
It's very interesting. I had to do some very good breathing now, because that really touched a very, I suppose the old saying was a nerve, but yeah, it made me feel quite emotional because I was very late to the self-care. Perhaps because self-care in the media and in the social media world and the world around us is often not the self-care we're referring to here. The acts that they associate with self-care are quite surface and they don't resonate with me. But more than that, going further back, I don't think I grasped that. And we've mentioned this before. When we were raised, you heard the love your neighbor part, but you never heard the love as yourself part. So a lot of our upbringing was focused on other, other, other. And my cup had to get so empty so many times in my life before I finally stood on my knees in the dusty felt and said, I don't get it. I don't know why I'm here. I can't do it. And there's a point of my life where your words now touched on. I didn't realize that I didn't need permission to take self-care. I was really burnt out. I was physically very, very ill. I was responsible for two other human beings. And I knew I couldn't carry on. And I knew I had to make changes. Yet I felt I was failing because I knew I needed to take care of myself. And the wonderful turnaround is that Reiki's been in my life since around the millennium. And it's been there, but I will phrase it like this. I think that I'm a student and a researcher, and often things are there for me intellectually, and I can teach it, but the embodying of Reiki is what happened in that moment. That I literally just said, right, I recognize a lot of how I practice Reiki was going through the motions. My practice wasn't my own, it was the stuff I learned. And I realized there and then, what if I actually live it and not just study it? And that was almost 4 years ago now. And how that's changed my life has been remarkable. And it's not all been plain sailing, but the gratitude is there even for the tough times, because sometimes things go better and then they go pear-shaped again. But indeed, we don't need someone else's permission to take care of ourselves. And we're not talking indulge yourself. I'm talking real self-care. Like for me, start my day with self and with Reiki and bookend my day. It really changed my life. And then in my search, I live quite remotely. So I have a lot of wellness practitioners around me. And a lot of, I go to the gym, I go to yoga, it's appointments they keep, but there's not a lot of lifestyle well-being community. There aren't groups of meditators. So again, thank goodness for technology and thank goodness for podcasts. I love listening. And a lot of what I'd learned the first time round with my Reiki qualifications, things I'm hearing a lot of people raise this now in the Reiki community as well. We just didn't have the knowledge and the insights that we do now. And I mean, I also want to say thank you to many Reiki practitioners who have resources like their websites, podcasts, social media, and who offer great advice and practices for free before you even consider going into a Reiki class or booking a session. They're just absolutely valuable. And one of the first practitioners that really changed how I engaged with Reiki was Yolanda Williams. And she just spoke about how when she qualified, she went through a similar experience. It was that beautiful synchronicity when you go through a troubling time, and I decided to sign up for Reiki Summit. One of her gifts was a short course, and in it she spoke about how her struggle to find her practice, and suddenly it was like, oh my goodness, I'm not alone here. Other people went through this too. And yeah, now I've got a whole collection of amazing practitioners who inspire me and who I can turn to daily when I want deeper insights into developing and living my practice. Robin and Colleen Benelli, Pam Allen LeBlanc, and we will put links in the show notes here because these are people who have worked in the Reiki field for decades, and the resources are there. Go and listen, go and hear, go and feel how people have lived the Reiki way. And just to say much, much, much gratitude for all the work you do and the resources you make available to all of us and to help us live this way.
That's beautifully said, and thank you for sharing some of your personal experiences, Anya. Something that came up for me is I think that is, once again, we think it's just us that learn the theory and then, kind of try to dabble with it a little bit, and then because we can't get it to work like it sounded in theory, we think we're doing it wrong. And I wondered, is that really true, or is it more a question of when we have difficult situations come up in our lives? Obviously, it's a challenge we have to acknowledge, and if there's loss, we have to work with that, and trauma, we have to stabilize that. But at some point, it's a portal for growth, or a deeper healing, or an expansion of self. And on this side of that experience, looking back, you can think, why did I not do it earlier? But it's an evolution, it's an organic growing. We don't know what we don't know until we do. So I think the timing was the right. Sometimes we have a deepening in our yoga practice, a deepening in our spirituality, a deepening in our maybe even Reiki. Sometimes things happen that makes us question everything or ever known and actually even walk away from it for a while. And I don't think it's wrong. I think it's growth. And it's how we see it or how we reframe that, or as long as we don't abandon our healing or our growth, we're still moving towards the light. And sometimes look at the spiral. Maybe with Reiki, you move into it and then a little bit away from it and then further away. And then all of a sudden you're straight back to the middle of it. You're still doing it. You're still on the path. And so how we get there and how long it took and what detours we had to take and how many mentors we had to get along the way, that's irrelevant as long as I'm on the path, right?
I love that you raise the spiral again because I can look back on my life, and you mentioned something there about that, I guess, despair, and let's call it what many people call it, dark night of the soul, and how terrifying it used to be for me. And with regular committed self practice, days come up still that feel dark, really dark. And at first there was this, no, why is it still coming up? And then I'd carry on practicing. And now I'm at that place where I see how, with regular Reiki practice and with aiming to try live the precepts, it's softer. When those days come, I go like, something's going to shift. Something wants to be birthed. I heard somebody say today on another podcast that we're so afraid of the dark, but we come from the dark. The womb space is dark. And now I kind of see that when I have days like that are just heavy and they feel like drudgery or I can't find my way, that I become still. I don't resist it. And it's softer and the spiraling, and I'm more aware that it's moving. And if I allow it to come, it's like allowing night to come. You can't just, well, I know in some places of the world you can have the midnight sun, but generally the day will fade and there will be night. And sometimes we need to be in the dark so that we can renew our search for the light again.
Not only that, but there's never a better time to strengthen your faith. And when you're sitting in the bottom of a dark well or a pit and you can't see the light, right? It's like I used to say, and now this is coming back to when you have something in theory and you're not practicing it. I used to love when I was younger to have this little thought saying of, it's not what happens to you, it's how you handle it. And I can tell you that little one phrase haunted me when I was in my deepest, darkest night after losing people, because it was like a neon light that I could see with my eyes closed. And it's like, okay, girlfriend, take that bumper sticker and live it. And that is when you have to have faith. And faith, when things go well, we don't test our strength, our resilience, our faith, our nothing, because it's going well. It's in the dark time that we grow. And it's kind of interesting. I've just thought about that. If anybody has ever done resistance training or working with weights, we don't grow any muscle when we pick up the weight. We have to go to bed tonight, do nothing, sleep, and eat the right food. When we're dormant, we're growing the muscle. And I think that's not by default. I think that's divine design. We're not going to grow resilience unless we sit in the dark or the despair at some point, or have tasted hopelessness, or have had a challenge that feels like a mountain in front of us.
Yeah, it's that analogy of push harder, strive more. And the athletic example is a good one because actually it's very much out there now that you need to rest, not just train harder and harder. And the world as it is, with all the very, very many voices speaking up, this chasing, it's not serving us, it's not serving the world, but there is a need to rest, to pause, to slow down as a part of every day and as a perspective on how we live. Yeah, and then the gratitude is a wellspring for
Right.
that way of life.
And even if you are in the dark, think about day and night, light and dark. People that are going through difficult times, sometimes during the light hours of the day, because we have so many distractions and things that we can be busy with, our troubles don't get to the better of us because we can keep them at arm's length. But then they visit us in the quiet of the dark night, in our own homes, in our beds. And if you're grateful for the moment, to at least know that you become aware of what your mind worries about. And at the same time, you can hold the thought that I can calm myself in the now. And then I can also remind myself that the darkness of the now is going to fade into the morning. And then I can actually take action. So yes, this is a hard moment, and I'm grateful that I know that this moment will pass and another moment will arrive. And in that other moment, new possibilities will arrive. The day would be out, the neighbors will be up, The hospital is open. I can take the book back to the library. Whatever was bothering you last night, I can make the phone call. I can write the thank you note. I can put in the resume. I can go on the internet. I can take the kid to the hospital. It's a beautiful flow of moments.
And as you say, also, this makes practice. So, my moment on my knees in the dirt, I also remembered Marianne Williamson saying, next time you're on your knees, stay there. And what she meant by that is we turn to faith, to a higher power, to trusting the universe, trusting source, calling on Divine Mother when we're in need. And then the light comes and we start forgetting. And the whole point of this precept, to my understanding at this point, is to keep practicing gratitude. So my hand is better now. Can I keep being grateful for the fact that I have limbs that work and that have healed? I hear in my yoga practice or in Reiki practice, clients will often talk about what's wrong. But I note that we very rarely note what's right. So if your foot's sore, then that's all you can think about. And 6 weeks down the line, you've forgotten the fact that every day you have feet that walk, that stand, that cycle, that climb, that swim. Yeah, that's where the gratitude comes in. And then it just gets forgotten. So it's that practice in the light, practice in the dark, just keep practicing. And you're always going to improve on it. You're always going to look at it again, but it's the sustained practice that makes things shift.
Right, that reminds me of it doesn't matter where and how you start your practice, whether it was, I'm so grateful for the successes, or I'm so grateful for the lessons I learned through the adversities. We have a starting point. That doesn't matter where it starts, but make that into a lifestyle and not just in the highs and the lows. And what I'm thinking of here is I work with people in grief and loss, so we can find gratitude in the dark night of the soul out of desperation to open us up for light. We can be grateful when we have the highs, but can we be grateful for that in between time where it feels like I'm in the doldrums? Because when we go through transformation or in life, there are periods where it feels like nothing is happening. So we are such a I like, I don't like kind of society. What about if it's just neutral? Can I still practice on the days that it's neutral? Because there's great gratitude there if you're coming through a dramatic time of ups, of lows, especially. When you hit the neutral part, you should be grateful because you're out of the storm. But it might feel weird and a little bit boring, dare I say. And you might even use phrases like, I'm stuck, nothing is happening. I don't like this feeling of, I don't know where I'm going to, uncertainty. But it's different through the previous one where you were in angst. So there's gratitude that I'm out of the anxiety part. I'm now in this one called plain sailing. Uneventful is not a bad place to be if you're coming through drama. It's like, okay, this will change too, right? Just for now, be grateful that you have a place to pause, an uneventful moment by your own words, or your own interpretation. The lack of drama is not something to not be grateful for.
You're right. There needs to be pause for things to grow, for things to incubate, for things to develop. You can't just output, output, output. If we think of nature, and there are all these seasons, but not all the days in autumn are the same, and not all the days in winter are the same. And when you plant a seed, you put it in the dark, and it then starts to sprout, and then it comes out, and then it goes through a phase like it does nothing. I always joke where I live, if you plant indigenous trees, for 7 years, it can look like they're doing nothing. And then suddenly, pajang, they just grow in height and spread out their foliage and they've arrived. And we are no different. The dark night of the soul is one thing because, that's, as you say, tackle it and you're engaged with it, or it feels so intense, and the very happy moment or the success moment is intense. But as you say, what about the everyday days, dare we say mundane? Can you find the sacred in the mundane? Can you find gratitude on an ordinary day where nothing much happened, or you may be feeling a bit lost? Not as directed as you have been. Maybe you've gone through a phase where you're very focused and things were just flowing. And then we're very quick to want to make it into a drama. As you said, I must be stuck. No, this is just that pause. You can't just keep inhaling, inhaling, inhaling. You need to exhale too. And there's even a pause between the in and the out. And the same with life.
I love that what you're saying. I'm thinking here of, people often hear of the thing called writer's block. I don't think any writer wants to experience writer's block. But how would you practice gratitude when you're experiencing writer's block? I can think of, okay, this is not exactly what I was hoping for because I want to get the next novel out. But if I can't write, here's a great opportunity for me to start reading again. Because if I shift my perspective, if I change my daily routine, if I expose myself to something new that I can experience, I'm going to shift the energy anyway. But I have to be accepting of what I call the challenge in the moment and find some way of being grateful for what this opportunity is giving me. A more practical experience would be if you work with clients that come on a regular schedule. 11 o'clock I'm going to have this client, 12 o'clock that one. And then you have days where they back to back just all have an issue and they can't make it. Or I can choose what I want to feel about that situation. I don't want the client not to come. If that's connected to earnings that you need, maybe not ideal. But I did get the time back. I didn't get the client to come in. I didn't earn the money, but I did get the time. I'm grateful for the time. How am I going to use this time that's beneficial for me and others? Maybe you can text somebody that needs to be uplifted. Maybe I can quickly swing by and drop off the whatever present I wanted to take to my friend who's in convalescent home that I haven't had time for because I was so busy with my clients. How can I harvest the moment in a grateful way and then use that ordinary day by not being unhappy about the circumstances, which ultimately means I'm okay and even grateful for what is coming up.
Yeah, and I want to underline rest because I think we're afraid of days when there's nothing in the diary or nothing on the agenda or nothing lined up. We get a little panicky because we have forgotten that pause is really valuable and good rest. And when I say rest, that I'm not saying watch a series, avoid the feeling. Feel what is there. Maybe you just need a nap. And as you say, maybe there are things that you can't tend to normally because your schedule's too busy. But maybe this is the perfect moment to go and do your Reiki self practice. You don't normally have the opportunity to deep dive into an extended practice or, as you say, harvest
whatever is coming up with a grateful heart. And then it doesn't really matter what you do with that time. You're practicing gratitude towards yourself, or self-kindness, or towards others, or just pausing. It's like a reset. Every time we pause, it's like a reset for everything, nervous system, body, attitude.
I think that we've chatted for a long time and we covered good ground here. Is there anything we haven't touched on before we wrap it up?
And I am very grateful for everybody who has come into my life, either in person or in the written book, or anybody that has taught me something along the path. I'm grateful for the people that stepped outside of their comfort zone for the first time, second time, third time, to give something to the world that they might have felt was not adequate enough. I'm so grateful that they didn't stop. They didn't let that self-doubt stop them, that they still went out and presented something to the world, because that just kept growing, and that's how we give back to others. And like you were saying, it starts somewhere and it will grow momentum, but we've got to take that first step. whether it's with your business you're building, with your family life, whatever you're working on right now. Can you take one grateful step forward so that we can continue to build gratitude into this world? Because we do forget about the simple things that is always available to us and that we forget about: nature, sunshine, friendships, love, animals, unconditional love from animals, safety. I have a house, a roof over my head. I have an education. I can read. My legs work. Technology. Living from a grateful heart and then remembering them even though life is going well for you. The simple pleasure.
I think there's so much value in those simple pleasures. I feel and that the real juice is to be found in the simple pleasures. I started my day yesterday morning and it was just one of those wind still days, so I couldn't even hear the ocean, which I normally do, and the village was quiet, and I became aware of the silence and the beautiful, beautiful bird song. And that was the thread, the golden thread that pulled me through my day and just lit up the whole day. Something as simple as that ignited the day.
Right, and that it gives you a buoyant heart for the rest of the day. You notice what you notice, and in this case, you notice something beautiful or something that's awe-inspiring. That energy carries you for the entire day. And I bet you every person you came into contact with, whether it's virtually or in real life, felt that energy and was grateful for that interaction on some level.
This gratitude opens your heart. We shield so much, and then our hearts can harden. But gratitude softens your heart and makes you realize that you can take in the difficult moments, the lighter moments. You can take it all in, the simplest of things, the highs, the lows. Yeah.
I think practicing gratitude can be the simplest practice of doing good in the world, because it's always a two-way stream. Gratitude benefits the heart that is grateful and the heart that is receiving that gratitude or the expression of that gratitude.
How it's like it ignites your heart light and it just
Mm-hmm.
lifts.
Yeah.
Thank you for a beautiful conversation and sharing James Crew's beautiful poem. And we've mentioned many amazing mentors on our path in this podcast, and we'll put the links in the show note. The download for the Reiki precepts, the link is in the show notes as well. And in our next episode on the precepts, we discussed, for today only, be honest. And remember, the precepts have been translated from Japanese, so there's many interpretations. That same precept used to say, do your work with diligence. So we need to do some serious research here, Sandy, and unpack it for our listeners next time. I thank you for being here today. I am so grateful you are in my life and on this podcast with me, and that we are exploring how to live Reiki, how to live the way of gratitude together.
I just took a big breath there because there's such a lot that my heart wants to respond to. But I'm just going to say thank you, Maya, for initiating our collaboration and guiding me with the first series that we did of Crossing the Ocean of Grief, and continuing to expand what we're seeing and what we're working on and bringing that into life, so to speak. And yes, thank you to each and every one that has crossed our paths and are still yet to come into the future. I just have such a good feeling about what we haven't even discovered yet as we go ahead. I'm grateful that I'm going to have to go and do research on living honestly. And I like the fact that you mentioned how the phrasing has changed from the original script to where we are today. And that to me just once again reminds us that we have to make it ours. Whatever the practices we take on, we stick to the basic principles and precepts, but it's got to be our language. It's got to be my wardrobe. It's got to fit my lifestyle. And that is the part that's so interesting because we have to work with it. It's not just a theory on a piece of paper. It's a practical living experience. And that really, to me, is what it's all about. So thank you. And till we meet again, be well, take care.
Bye, Sandy. Take good care.